Co-parenting is so short-sighted in the concept that you think your kids are always going to be under 18 years old. They are eventually going to be adults.
Yeah.
And they're going to ask questions, and they're going to find out information.
Yeah.
And they're going to be whoever God has created them to be. And all the things that you thought were so incredibly important, all you've really done is teach them about toxic relationships.
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way. We're Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BKF podcast. We are continuing a series in co-parenting. Before we get into that, make sure that you like, share.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, we want to get some traction here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
All right, so we've been talking the last couple of weeks about co-parenting and really getting very specific and probably a little bit more raw than we have in the past. This is not something the first time we've talked about co-parenting, but we're really trying to get into some more hardcore topics and situations.
Yeah.
Because we know that at the end of the day, this is something you experience on a daily basis, and you're looking at your child and you're saying, hey, how do we create the best environment for them? And what can I control? And why is this happening?
Yeah.
And so we're going to try to talk about some things to avoid and some maybe very specific things of toxic co-parenting today.
Yeah. So last week we touched on, some healthy things, which was, you want to try to show, respect and honor. It's not always going to be received. It should not also be the goal. You want to be nice to your co-parent, so to speak. You want to try to create peace. The other things that we talked about was, don't use sarcasm. Be nice in your communication. Be a good communicator. Encourage healthy relationships. We want our kiddos to have a good relationship with their other parent, even if we don't like them. But, some of the things that I think some of the behaviors that we consistently see as we coach blended families, we do therapy with blended families, we meet people fill up our DMs and email inbox, every day with just these really hard situations. And so some of the toxic traits that I could name 10 off the top of my head, and we're going to talk about some, but we're going to talk about these, and these could be things that maybe you're participating in or being a part of. And so this is really to just inform you of hey guys, these are some things that are unhealthy when it comes to being a co-parent and to try to avoid them.
Let's talk about verbal abuse. And again, I want to make sure that we're honoring and respectful to those who've been through. We understand abuse. We understand that whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, there are situations that really call for a different set of circumstances around co-parenting. And so we want to honor and be respectful of that. I think we're trying to approach this in a way that maybe that wasn't present, but you're trying to be, you're trying to build a more healthy co-parenting relationship.
Yeah.
But verbal abuse, name calling, insults, derogatory remarks, all the things that they have said with the goal of tearing you down, getting you to submit to whatever will they want to. There's a reason people use strong language.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy. We know that. It's really not even about setting boundaries, because I don't think that prompts a response of a healthy boundary.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily used in a way that says, hey, I'm tearing you down so you can respect my boundary. The only purpose of it is I just want to hurt you. Yeah. And what you really ought to be thinking is I just want to hurt my children.
Yeah.
Because that's really what you're doing. It's not going to help in the long run. You're already divorced, so it's not like this relationship is going to rekindle to marriage. So you just have to be cautious of this.
Yeah.
And mindful. And then I think we've said this on all the podcasts. Are you honoring God in your interaction?
I think it goes back to your heart. If you're co-parenting and you feel the need to lash out or make those remarks, that says more about you and your heart and the condition of it than it has nothing to do with the other co-parent you're saying it to. That has everything to do with you and whatever resentment or unforgiveness or anger that you were dealing with. I know that me personally, I've been in those seasons when I've received a hateful text message. I mean, I've fired back before in anger, because you get defensive and you want to defend yourself, and you're like, that's not true. And I think over time, like, I've had to realize personally, like, God is my defender, and it doesn't matter what I say or do. That's not going to change his thoughts about me or whatever conclusion or story that he's come to in his mind.
Yeah.
And so, for me, it's like, either don't respond or, respond in a direct but, nice way. That's not, there's no name calling or there's no undertones, but like, hey, this is what it is, or, and that looks different for everybody. But again, like, when you feel the need to tear somebody down, be sarcastic, be critical, call names, again, that is a reflection of your heart and where you're at. And I think where the enemy will have a lot of people in bondage and just in this stronghold of unforgiveness, and it takes over that co-parenting relationship.
Well, this was said to me the other day by a member of the team, and it just kind of sat with me when you talk about when you tear the other parent down. Do you really realize that what you're doing is you're tearing down someone who makes up half of your child?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're doing. Your child is a mirrored reflection of both parents.
Mm-hmm.
They possess both of you. So are you in favor of tearing down half your child? I know that's kind of a weird way to explain this, but at what point do you realize that toxic communication, you will eventually be held accountable for that?
Every word and every action that we speak, everything we will be held accountable for.
I mean, and I'm not talking about just by our Heavenly Father. I'm talking about by our children.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine the concept of if I printed out every text message, and when your children get 20 years old, I say, hey, here's the reflection of what I went through as a co-parent.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be proud of what you sent? Would you be embarrassed? Would it build that person up?
Yeah.
I think that is what we have to start understanding. And this is the short-sightedness of co-parenting. Co-parenting is so short-sighted in the concept that you think your kids are always going to be under 18 years old. They are eventually going to be adults.
Yeah.
And they're going to ask questions, and they're going to find out information.
Yeah.
And they're going to be whoever God has created them to be.
Mm-hmm.
And all the things that you thought were so incredibly important, all you've really done is teach them about toxic relationships.
Yeah.
And that's where the dangerous part comes in. And as we look at the reflection of our children as adults, and as we look at them, did we push them closer to their Creator, or did we push them in a way that says they don't even understand what marriage and parenting looks like? And that's where the result of your text goes. And that's what the part for me that is it makes me angry. Mm-hmm. It makes me sad and disappointed in watching that.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it's always there in the back of your mind, right? Because as you said, your kids get older, they leave the house. Our son, he's gone now, and our oldest. And we had about a 2-year period where co-parenting was great. After our litigation season, you've heard us, Scott, if you've been listening and following BK for a while, you know that the Lord performed a big miracle in that relationship after going through a year-long battle of litigation and then mediating. And it was great. And so you guys, verbal abuse and undermining authority, those are things that are not healthy. Those are toxic traits of a co-parent. When you're consistently degrading and criticizing the authority of the other parent and what they're doing, that is not good for the children. And it divides the loyalty. It makes the child feel like they have to choose one family over the other. And it's as they grow and mature, it's really something that is maladaptive to the behaviors and the things that they are, the relationships that they're going to have in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think what happens so much in co-parenting is you develop a spirit of comparison, and you develop a spirit of, my co-parenting is only going to be deemed successful if my child does XYZ. And I think that's a hard place to be in. And I think it's hard for healthy co-parents, and I think it's really difficult for toxic co-parents. But you develop that spirit of comparison, and you watch your child kind of run in and out of directions, and you want to give them the best guidance possible, but you end up undermining what you're afraid of, or undermining what maybe should be a better option, simply because your spirit of comparison is so high. And that's a difficult thing to deal with. It's difficult for the child. It's difficult for a lot of situations. The surrender part of that is where it's got to come in.
Yeah.
It's got to come into a surrender of saying, number one, if you looked at reality, you would understand that your child's going to grow up and they're going to do whatever sometimes they want to do.
Sure.
So your ability to control, influence, whatever, that's gone. But you also have to say, hey, this may not be my season for recognizing the benefits.
Yeah.
It could come much later. And we see this, and I will say this, let me also speak this real quick. You may be in a season kind of like ours where, we have an 18-year-old son and we may not agree with what he's doing. That may not be just a blended family issue. We know that from just kids. Kids, they turn 18. Y'all have seen it 1,000 times. They look at basically their parents like they're idiots, and I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to just always speak this into just blended families. Sometimes kids are kids.
Yeah.
But effective communication with your co-parenting, especially when your kids are doing something that you don't necessarily agree with, is important.
Yeah, no, I agree. Another toxic trait of co-parenting, and we talk about this a lot, and everybody knows this, using the child as the messenger, not relaying that information to the child, but going to the parent. And again, you may not have a great co-parenting relationship, and that's where you have to use the court-appointed apps, the emails, text message, whatever it is, because you cannot verbally have a conversation with the other person. Yeah. So not using the child as the messenger, and just being in an inflexibility. I think a good trait of a healthy co-parent is being flexible. There's so many different dynamics and situations that occur in blended families. So when we can be flexible towards one another and provide opportunities to each other, it gives the child more opportunities. So being inflexible to say, nope, this is how it's going to be, and this is my time. Yeah, it's your time, but there also can be opportunities where you know what? This would be a great thing for Johnny to go do. And I'm going to be flexible with my time and let him go do that so that he doesn't have to miss out, versus, you know what, this isn't on your time. This is my time. And, he doesn't need to go. And then you're sitting at the house not doing anything when he could go experience this really fun thing with friends, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think allowing flexibility, and not being inflexible because of your own pride or ego or, feelings towards your co-parent.
Yeah. A lot of times you just want to hurt them. You just want to hurt your other co-parent. I think that's what really comes down to, when we talk about all these toxic traits. I mean, ask yourself, is really what your goal? Are you just trying to inflict pain? And I think if you really sat on that, I think that you would probably find somewhere inside you would find a really honest answer.
Do you love your child more than you hate your ex-spouse?
I don't think a lot of people can affirmatively say that. I really don't. And I think the longer we've done blended family ministry, the more I've realized that.
Yeah.
It is the way the enemy will absolutely attack you in the most vulnerable position possible. Toxicity exists for one specific reason. It exists because God created marriage and sin destroyed it. It was the first thing God created on earth. It is the way he mirrors his relationship with us. The lack of respect for that and the generational damage that it'll do is absolutely atrocious. And I don't think people have enough general respect for it. And that is why you will find that people hate their spouse, ex-spouse, more than they love their children. And you see that in all these reflections. I don't know which side of the boat you're on if you're watching this. I really don't. I don't know if you're in the I'm trying, but I'm facing roadblocks, or, I'm watching all your podcasts, but still I send those mean text messages. I don't know which side you're on. It starts with a relationship with Christ. It starts with you asking yourself really hard questions and going, how do we move past this?
I think if love's the goal, right? And we love the Lord with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind. Hate is the easy thing.
Mm-hmm.
If the goal is that thing that you are working continuously forward or towards and you want to achieve, like that's the hard thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to love your ex-spouse the way that you love the Lord and the way that you love yourself, man, that's hard, especially when there's been pain and things that have caused turmoil in your relationship. Understand that that's not going to come easy. And that's where you said it's the intentionality, and it's the prayer, and it's asking God, and it's getting in his presence. We may not like our spouse, but as the commandment says, love your neighbor as yourself. If that is the goal, every day we have the opportunity to wake up and do that to the best of our ability.
Yeah. Yeah, these are tough topics, guys. And if you've tuned in this long and your heart's in this, I applaud you. I really do. I think that it's really, really challenging to look at yourself in the reflection of the mirror and look at yourself in the way maybe even your child looks at you and says, what are you doing?
If you're surrendering what that outcome looks like, you can do and say all the things and do exactly what the Bible tells you to do. And the outcome in your co-parenting relationship may not be what you desired. And it may actually just be really awful. But God sees everything that you're doing. He sees your intentions and your heart behind your words and actions. And we can fear him more than we can fear man and our co-parents. So just want to encourage you guys, if you're in one of those co-parenting relationships where like you're doing everything you can and they are just being tough as nails and it's not working out, I just want to encourage you. You're doing a good job. God sees and he will bless your obedience and everything that you're doing. And it may not be the outcome that you thought or you desired, or it may look very different from what you pictured. But he is for you and he is with you. So I just want to encourage you to keep on.
Yeah. Guys, next week, we're going to continue diving into hard topics. We're going to go into some dark places where God needs to shine light. If you know somebody who's struggling in co-parenting, send this podcast to them. Send this resource to them. And just say, hey, I just hope it encourages you. I want this to be encouraging to you. Can't wait to be back with you next week.
Yes. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the Audible podcast, wherever you listen to, if that's Spotify, Apple, Google, any of those. So make sure that you're subscribing and catching our episodes every week.
Yep.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Take care.
Hey friends, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we talk about more blended family topics. Be blessed in all that you do, and remember, nothing will be impossible with God.